Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo, and in yesterday's TLDR, the Locker Room Daily Report, which was streamed live into this channel because it was the weekend. Normally on weekdays, we stream the Locker Room Daily Report in the other YouTube channel, youtube.com/LockerGnome. I got a question from Mark Gibb as a super chat. So first of all, thank you, Mark, for your support. Thank you, everybody, for your support. And second of all, thank you for your super chat. And third of all, thank you for what I thought was a rather good question to dive a little deeper into today, at least as far as my response is concerned. And I think a lot of people may have a different response than I do, but that's kind of par for the course, to throw a little golf analogy in there. Though I'm not a golfer. I'm a mini golfer, a goofy golfer. The best mini golf game of all time was on the Atari 2600. No debate, no argument. That's my answer. So the question, the original question really that inspired this video, are we expecting too much from our phones now, our smartphones, these pocket computers as I've called them, as you may likely have referred to them as well, these PCs? Do we demand too much from these devices? I say no, we don't demand enough, but these devices are very often pitched as the perfect things. But they're not. That's marketing speak. I believe that we think or have been accustomed to believing that the latest is always the greatest. But it's usually not. It's the latest, yes, but the greatest, not always. Moreover, I believe we are just as well served from mid-tier devices as we are from high-tier devices. Like the bleeding edge devices, the devices that everyone talks about, the devices that warrant the most amount of attention. Of course, this is good news for the companies and services around those flagship devices, as they're very often referred to. But are those devices worthy of our attention? These top-tier devices? Maybe. But what if we're just as well served by devices that aren't flagships? The devices that very often don't rank in search, let's say. You don't type in a query for a mid-tier device because you've never heard of it before. You may have heard of devices that a lot of the so-called reviewers talk about, the media talk about. But what about the ones that aren't getting talked about? Are they worthy of your attention? Do we demand more from the devices that we spend the most amount of money on? I think we should demand more from everything that we choose to use, not just flagship devices. Anything that you choose to spend your time and attention on is absolutely worthy of your time and attention, or it should be. And maybe you haven't processed that yet. Maybe you're just used to taking whatever's thrown at you and accepting it because that's the way it is. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to challenge the status quo, nor am I saying that some of those flagship devices are not worthy of time, attention, or any amount of resources. I just believe that we're entering this era of technology, though we're still kind of fiddling around in the early stages of consumer electronics, though we've been fiddling around for a few decades now. It's not really progressing at such a breakneck speed that I think some people expect it to. I've had this issue when people claim that there's no innovation. There's iterative innovation, and these devices get iteratively better, and sometimes they leapfrog, and then another company comes along and that technology leapfrogs the other technology, and things get incrementally better, slowly but surely. So if you looked at your device as it existed 10 years ago, and maybe you're still using that device, wow, if you are, but is it really that much better from the device that you may be able to get today in terms of what you get from it? If I were to rewind the clock 10 years ago, I would certainly do a lot of things differently. But I would say that I would probably be just as well served from a desktop computer, let's say, as I am today. Which isn't to say that it wouldn't be faster today than it was 10 years ago. But in terms of what I was able to do with it, I'm good. I was able to do pretty much everything back then as I'm able to do today. What may have changed is speed. What may have changed is software capabilities, but not by dramatic levels. And I think this is a majority. And when I say majority, I'm talking like, don't look to me. Don't look to someone you believe is a lot like you. Look to the normies. I'm not a normie. You're not a normie if you're watching my videos. Probably. I mean, maybe you are a normie, at which point I would say thank you for watching and listening, because I think you understand the advice and appreciate the advice that I'm trying to lay down on a regular basis. If those people don't upgrade their computers, pocket computers included, desktop computers, any kind of computers or technology, all that often, you have to ask why. Because they're well served. My parents, for example, are still using, I think, a second-gen iPad. And when I say that, I mean like the second iPad series that Apple produced. My mom is very fine with what she has. There's nothing more that she needs from that particular system. She found a use case for it, and she adores it just as much today as she did, well, maybe not 10 years ago, but certainly several years ago. Would I be satisfied with it? Maybe not. But I, like you, am likely an edge case. Someone who appreciates an overarching experience and, that much more speed and performance and that much more polish, which I shouldn't probably get into, especially if we're talking about the state of iOS, which this video is not about, by the way. Are we expecting too much from phones? Maybe the nerds are, maybe the geeks are, but I think the normies, the 90%, the 99% are not. They're fully satisfied with what they're using today. And I'm kind of the same person when it comes to other aspects of where technology impacts my life. For example, cars. Can't stand them. They're vehicles. I don't care. They get me from point A to point B, and maybe they're a little more efficient here or there, but honestly, if I was still driving the same vehicles I was driving 10 years ago, I'd be okay with that. I would be fine with that. Maybe you wouldn't be. But again, you may be an edge case. I think most people don't expect too much from their phones or from the technology that's provided to them that they use on a regular basis. I think the expectation, and really the most cogent expectation that one should have, whether you consider yourself a nerd or a geek, this 1%, or you are a normie in the 99%, you should expect that you are going to have a clean and cohesive experience. So a car gets me from point A to point B. I'm good. I could have some things on top of that, some niceties on top of that, but even if, for argument's sake, I was still driving a car that had a cassette deck, would that bother me? No, it wouldn't. I mean, I've got all the tricked out stuff in my current vehicle, which, by the way, is the 2015 Regret. Can't wait to get rid of it. I don't believe in owning vehicles. I can't wait until we get that to that point in society where we no longer own vehicles. Cannot wait. I don't like owning technology, and I certainly don't like owning vehicles, which are pretty much synonymous with technology anymore. We expect and should expect and almost demand that we get a good experience no matter what that price point happens to be. Do we expect too much? No, we just expect that the value we extract from the product that we get or the service that we get to correspond or in many ways supersede the price that we may have paid for said device or said service. And if you think otherwise, it's not that I'm being too critical. It's that you're not being critical enough. I'm talking about your resources. I'm talking about what you care to use, what you choose to use. Maybe not me. This isn't so much about me. It's about, well, are we demanding too much? Are we expecting too much from our phones? I say let's abstract the word phones and just talk about technology. Let's just abstract technology and talk about the things that we choose to use. Like, you have to care about the things that you choose to use, or at least care enough to want to use them or to have to use them. And this is why we find ourselves in the cycle of no one wants to upgrade their dusty old PC. Nobody wants to even upgrade their dusty old tablet. Maybe it doesn't have a lot of dust. Maybe it's gathering dust. I don't know. But hopefully you understand. I'm not specifically saying that your computer is dusty, okay? It may very well be, and you may need to clean it out, because dust is not the friend of desktop machines. But I've seen people using substantially older devices, including my parents, which I would say is probably 99% of the population. Not to say that the world is full of 99% Pirillos. Thank goodness. But for years they held off on upgrading their smartphone, their first smartphones, because they were being well served by what they had, and they saw all the announcements, and they saw all the features, and they saw all those things, but they already spent money, a substantial amount of money, on those first devices that they owned, and there was nothing effectively wrong with them. They didn't perceive a single issue. So they felt like they got the value out of the device that they were currently using. So why spend more money on something that you don't need? We're not talking about Star Wars collectibles here, people. We're talking about tools, by and large. Because Star Wars is always the exception to the rule, at least in my book. Maybe not in your book. Are we expecting too much from technology? No, we just want it to meet expectations, to meet value, whatever that is. Whether it's a $100 device or whether it's a $1,000 device. Are we getting our money's worth? Yes or no? That's the answer. I don't know what that answer is for you, because there's so many possibilities in diving a little deeper into this particular topic, but it's something that I feel pretty strongly about. Being an advocate for the user, I fight for the user. If you don't know that reference, you are absolutely not a geek, nor are you a nerd. I believe in being able to find something that would suit my needs and not also feel the need that I have to upgrade it within a year. I understand technology grows, but think about that 99%. Think about the people around you who aren't the edge cases like you or me. Unless you're not surrounded by those people, at which point I would tell you, you probably need to expand your circle of friends to get out of that groupthink mentality. It's one of the reasons why I don't always chase the latest hardware, because the software hasn't necessarily improved. Or if it hasn't, why? Why hasn't it? Why does it need to? If it's not going to move the needle for a company. But software doesn't always move the needle for the company. Hardware does. But I think most people out there are fine with what they have. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't upgrade it. Unless you want to. That's your choice. I'm not diminishing you or admonishing you for making that choice. But you asked the question, Mark, which was a fantastic question, and I even wrote it down on my sticky. It's not a yellow sticky. It's a sticky that I can shake, and then the text disappears. If it was a real toy, but it's not. Are we expecting too much from phones now? Smartphones, phones that allow us to communicate, allow us to be picked up from the mall by our parents when we need to, instead of having to go to a payphone and dropping in a dime, which some of us had to do. I know, perish the thought. What do you think? Are we expecting too much from stuff now, from phones? Or are we not? Are we well served by what it is that we have today? Are you caught in that cycle? Do you want to break free? It's not that difficult to do. You just gotta have to ignore what the prevailing opinions seem to be, that the latest is the greatest. I think what you already have is the greatest, because it's working, unless it's not. Are you expecting too much from phones? Or do you think you expect too much from phones? I don't. I expect more. I expect better. But then again, that was my choice to get a phone or a product or a service or whatever. I mean, those are your resources. Those are resources that you worked for, theoretically, unless those resources were just handed to you. Not all of us are so lucky. I'm not talking about that 1% versus the 99%. Hopefully you've been with me throughout the duration of this video, as well as any other video that I may have done over the course of however long I've been doing videos, since long before this platform existed. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you again for potentially being a patron of mine at youtube.com/no. Patreon.com/Chris Pirillo, or a sub of mine on Twitch, twitch.tv/Chris Pirillo. Links are in the video description. Let me know your thoughts. Keep asking really good questions. You're asking solid questions that I've been able to address during the live video streams at youtube.com/LockerGnome. And maybe I'll extract another one of your questions and answer it with hand gestures in a future video. I have no idea what that was. I love you. I appreciate you. But at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices that I hope you're happy with. And may the Force be with you.